Used to my room. Welcome everyone. Today is Tuesday, October the 2nd, 2018. This is the Personnel, Public Information, Human Relations, and Housing Committee. Welcome to everyone who's able to join us today. I do detect a quorum. We have a few items on our agenda today. The first, and after we do the legislative items, we do need to pick a vice chair. Get ready for volunteers. There's some volunteers for that. So the first item, legislative item, is Resolution RS 2018-1425. The sponsors are Vercher and Withers. This one accepts a grant from the State Department of Labor and Workforce Development to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to provide reemployment services and eligibility assessment services to help unemployment insurance claimants return to work faster. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Is there any discussion from this body on the matter? Because we do have Mr. Combs here, just wanted to, if folks were not present at Budget and Finance for that discussion, there was some very helpful background information. It's not necessarily germane to this, but if you would like to make that information available to this committee, just so y'all are aware.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman. So unfortunately, we are going through, which will hopefully be our final round of restructuring, because we are, after December 31st, losing all of our federal grant funding. And that will no longer flow through NCAC or through Metro government anymore.
Is that, and what was the originating source? Was it, what department federally?
So it's the Federal Department of Labor through the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. There's still about $4 million of state funds that are allocated for services in Davidson County. There will just be a different body who will be determining how those services are provided. So some staff might be able to stay on after December 31st that receive the grant funding, because there might be a chance for an extension, but I don't necessarily think it'll happen. So we're going to let staff know, hopefully this week. I'm meeting with Director Hall tomorrow and Director Lomax O'Neill to work through the budget issues. Luckily, it doesn't seem we're going to be cut as deep as I thought we would, at least for this fiscal year, but it'll be between probably 4 and 6 staff members that we'll have to give layoff notices to. One thing I wanted to clear up from last night from questions from Council Lady Gilmore, we over the summer began a process of reevaluating some of our youth staff members' job descriptions, because the work they were doing didn't match their job description any longer. So through that process, there was a potential that these people would get a raise based on the change in their job description. But I made sure that nobody is getting a raise anytime soon, and probably not in this fiscal year. Because as Councilor Gilmore brought up last night, and what I thought as well, is that's not appropriate for people to be getting raises while people are getting laid off, even if it is completely different funding streams. And also, just for the record, for this body as well, I did not accept a raise this year, nor do I plan to anytime in this fiscal year.
All right, any other discussion on this item?
Only question I have is, absent the federal funding flow, I'm guessing we don't anticipate that the state is going to step in and create replacement funds at a state level.
No, they are basically just redirecting those funds through another body. So in their kind of purview, they think those funds are still available. They're just not available for us.
Chair.
Yes, sir. You're recognized.
Wasn't they supposed to, I thought we were told that they were going to be employed till the middle of next year?
That is what we believed as well. That was part of the agreement that Mayor Briley signed with 12 other mayors in the new workforce area. The language in that amendment to the agreement was a little loose. And so when the new workforce board for the area met about 2 weeks ago, they voted to only extend a contract through December 31st with the potential that it could be extended through June 30th of next year, based on the new board determining what they think is the appropriate budget level. I do not feel confident that could happen, and I also don't feel it's appropriate to string staff along and tell them, well, this might happen when there's no guarantee it will. I'd rather tell them, this is all that we know, and unfortunately we have no guarantees, and then if something does happen, that happens, but I would rather them know their options now.
So why can they work in another area of Metro that deals with workforce development? I mean, we just learned the other day, actually, sorry, Chair. We learned the other day that there is a huge issue of disparity on hiring and contracting of minorities. I know it's a big issue for Latinos and for New Americans. So why couldn't we use for 6 months these people to help deal with that gap?
So I would love to, if there were a funding stream for me to employ those people, that
You
would
just said there
probably
is $4 million.
So he is losing funding, which is why he's losing staff. So let me say a couple of things. As has been the case, because in my personal opinion, and I'll be frank with this committee, the hits keep coming for NCAC. I mean, they have been, it's unbelievable in the past year. The staff was essentially cut in half last year, and we supported NCAC and Patrick through a very difficult process there. Then we were pleasantly surprised there was a smaller impact, which we're currently working with the 2 impacted members that we had from this last round from the agreement. And we feel pretty confident we're gonna be able to replace them even though we're in a hiring freeze. And as many people have heard, while we are actively in a hiring freeze, it does not mean we're not hiring. It just means that we're only able to hire critical positions in the government, right? Everybody's got to continue to do the services, but those positions that we can leave vacant for a period of time are left vacant for a period of time. So the opportunities to absorb staff is a little harder, but it's definitely not impossible, and we are actively working to place the 2. Now that we've got potentially another 5 to 7, we will work with them the same way. And the way we approached both last year's big layoff and these ongoing layoffs, thankfully the layoffs have been a lot less than we've had in years past, let's say 10 years ago. We try to do kind of a wraparound service to those employees. So we're kind of either helping them try to source employment through Metro, outside of Metro if that's something that they want to do, or then also exploring benefit and pension options. Some of these people have enough time that they can actually take their pension and go do something else that they've always wanted to do and not suffer that loss of income or benefits. So we were able to meet a few people's needs that way in these last rounds. And so we expect to do continued kind of high-touch service to those impacted employees to kind of meet their needs, because every one of them is individual. Some people don't have enough time, some people are too young, some people are right there, and we try to get creative with our options. So we do that no matter what. I would love to be able to take these people and repurpose them into doing that, but I don't have positions or a budget funding for that.
I asked about the $4 million. Why can't the $4 million be used for that?
So just to clear that up, when the state receives the federal workforce funding, they get it in one lump sum from the federal government. Then they make allocations per county based on population and need. So we're a little bit larger than Memphis, but we get less money than Memphis because they have greater need. But that money then flows to local workforce boards, and whereas we used to be staff to the local workforce board, we will not be that staff anymore. And whereas Metro used to be the fiscal agent, Metro will not be that fiscal agent anymore. So although the state is saying we want $4 million to flow through this workforce board to Davidson County, NCAC and Metro will not have the ability to say how that is spent, and we can't spend that on our staff.
Why can you spend it on them? And I didn't say on your staff. Mm-hmm. I was saying for that staff to be reassigned and use the $4 million, part of it, probably a very small part of it, to do the type of work that we were. Sorry, Chair. I hope.
No, this is great.
So I'm not saying to use it for staff, because clearly the staff is no longer there for that job, but it could be reassigned to a different type of work where they could engage in the type of stuff we need them to do, which is deal with this gap on contracting issues. I mean, I can tell you, Latinos will be very thankful if there was somebody out there helping them deal with their minority designations and all kinds of things that they face every day that they struggle with, because there is actually no support for them to do it from the city as much as, I mean, there is support, but not as much as it should be. So why can't we just assign some of that money to repurpose these people in a different department and use that money for what is intended, right? It's intended for workforce development.
Because that money no longer will come to Metro, so Metro has no discretion over how that's spent.
Why will the money not come to Metro?
Because Metro, per the agreement the mayor signed with the other 12 mayors, is no longer the fiscal agent for that funding.
Where will the money go?
The money will flow through the workforce board, which is incorporated into its own nonprofit based out of Clarksville.
Will it flow to the where?
So it will flow to contractors providing services at the American Job Center, located over in Metro Center, and then through youth contract providers, which are currently Martha O'Brien, Mid-Cumberland, and I think Martha O'Brien and Mid-Cumberland are only Davidson
So
County.
why can't be a third one, which is these employees doing what I just described?
I think that would be wonderful to do. I have no say over how that money's spent, though.
Who has a say?
The workforce
The
board.
workforce
Board.
board, yes.
Okay, can we apply to them? Before
Absolutely.
we sign off on this?
I think the question came up last night about the $4 million that comes from Metro, the Opportunity Now and the NCRP. Is that what you meant, or no? Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking
The
about
the Metro funds.
WIOA funding.
Okay.
WIOA funding, there's still $4 million that the State Department of Labor and Workforce Development wants spent in Davidson County. That is under the purview of the Workforce Board. Davidson County has the most members on that board, but it's only 4 of 23 people. So we can go to that board and advocate for services here in Davidson County, but ultimately it is their decision and their discretion on how that money is spent.
Well, I don't want to lose these employees that know the lay of the land and could be helping with this. I mean, I hope, can we do a deferral and discuss, is that possible?
Yeah, thank you, and we do have a couple other items on our agenda, so this is great discussion that we need to continue. For this particular grant, this grant is dedicated to specific things and will basically only be used in the month of October, and so if we do a deferral, it's not to say that people would not be served, but you would reduce the amount of time during which people could be served, and so this discussion should absolutely continue. But for this
Kind of a sidebar discussion, so
to
the
this
actual item.
for this particular grant, in order to actually enable it to serve the people that it currently is available to for the greatest amount of time, we would need to go ahead and pass it today.
I think, Mr. Chair, to follow up on Councilman Bednay's line of inquiry here, though, I can't. Unfortunately, the kind of the series of unfortunate events here does make me wonder sort of the ongoing future of NCAC in terms of workforce development, right?
Yeah.
Do you all are you going to do a kind of, is there a strategic plan between Metro HR and NCAC that is going to happen as a response to this? I mean, what's the forward-looking outlook, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we will still have Metro programs through Opportunity Now, the Nashville Career Readiness Partnership, and Construction Readiness Partnership that we will still operate. And so I'm in discussion with the mayor and the mayor's office to figure out what the scope of work will be going forward. My guess is it will continue on this work, continue on youth and adult empowerment, probably a lot more having to do with equity. And that would be a discussion I would welcome your suggestions on about how best to utilize this remaining staff going forward.
With that, can I? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. The next item, actually I'm going to take these out of order. So the next item that I would like to take up is Bill 2018-1281. The sponsors are Councilmembers Murphy and Henderson. Amends Title II of the Metro Code of Laws to codify a sexual harassment awareness and training requirement for employees and certain contractors. There is a proposed amendment that the sponsors would like to move. So
Move the amendment.
thank you. Director Hall, can you summarize the amendment for us really quickly?
Sure. The ordinance as drafted with regard to, which the only part that's been amended is the contractor portion. The codification of training for sexual harassment prevention is already legally enforceable now and is just codifying what we're doing for executive order. So Metro employees will be trained the same way. This is simply moving it from one legal mechanism to the other. The part that's getting amended is with regard to contractors. As currently drafted, we do not have the resources in-house to support that kind of support and substantiation for contractors of that certain category to be able to provide them training. What this does is allows, through the contracting process, the contractors will then give an affidavit that will allocate that anybody who works with Metro employees from their firm have to successfully have a sexual harassment prevention training before they start or within 90 days of interfacing with Metro employees. So that is something we can do. Yes, sir.
Awesome. Thank you. I praise the two sponsors that are here for their hard work, and thank you, Madam Director, for your work on this. I also have a question. I know that this is better than having nothing, but can we also do the same thing when it comes to Metro contractors, when it comes to diversity?
I don't see why not. I mean, we currently mandate diversity awareness training for all of our Metro employees as well. So that's something as a mandatory training we're doing today. That could also be something that is given through the same fashion as proposed in the amendment. Again, our staff can't. We only, as I mentioned during my budget presentation, we only have 4 trainers for the entire metropolitan government. We already have staff in other departments that supplement our mandatory training program. So we are pretty bare bones with regard to our resources in the training division.
Thank you for that suggestion. That would be separate legislation. Just in the interest of time for today, we do need to go ahead and take a vote. Is there any other discussion on this particular amendment that we're moving or this bill? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, so that moves 5-4-0 against. All right, the last item legislatively is a resolution that I introduced, Resolution RS 2018-1430. Request the Metro Civil Service Commission consider amending the pay plan for Metro Vice Mayor and council members that we had adopted previously. Is there a motion to discuss?
Yes.
Thank you. So when we had adopted pay plans a little while back, a lot of the pay plans, as we all know, cover different categories of employees, and the legislation that we had passed a while back, the original sort of multi-year employment pay plan, had included eventually a salary increase for Metro Council and Vice Mayor in the term that begins in 2019. Due to funding challenges in the Metro government, and this year we ended up passing subsequent legislation that rescinded all of that for employees, but not for the portion for the Metro Council that takes place in 2019. I've had some discussions with Director Hall. We had pretty good deliberation in Budget and Finance yesterday. I've introduced this legislation really to start a discussion amongst the Metro Council, because I think we will have conversation and inquiry from employees and constituents about why we are not funding COLAs for employees, but are still allowing an increase to go forward for the next council term. We had good discussion in Budget and Finance. Director Hall, if you would give me a recommendation, what I would like to do perhaps is to have a committee deferral for 2 meetings. If that would still allow, that way we could still have a discussion, but I know there are some other ideas that maybe we as a body or other council members can come up with that we could discuss sort of in tandem with that. And if a two meeting deferral, which would go to the beginning of November, would maybe allow some of those ideas to germinate a little bit more and still have discussion for you before you have the December Civil Service Commission. Would that time frame work for you?
I think as long as we could get something by the first meeting in November, I think we absolutely could do something like that.
Okay.
I'm happy to facilitate whatever request on behalf of the council to the commission for their consideration.
Thank you.
Well, this is a non-binding resolution anyway, isn't it?
That's right. It's a non-binding resolution that basically asks the Civil Service Commission to to reconsider the pay adjustment that's proposed for council and vice mayor in 2019.
It'd be sad if this rate comes through and the employees got dumped on this year.
So, I guess, Councilman, to that end and to what Councilman Pardue is suggesting though, I mean, we don't know yet what the FY20 fiscal outlook is gonna be. And I wonder why the timing of this is such that we're advancing this conversation before we know if we're gonna restore COLA.
That's a great question, and thank you for asking that. My reasoning for wanting to have this conversation now is so that we are not in the middle of a budget in June and having this discussion at that point in time without already having had a conversation among this body. There was some really good discussion in Budget and Finance yesterday about how that pay plan for council and vice mayor was crafted originally and where it came from with a compensation study that looked at compensation as well as benefits. But my suggestion to this body is that we begin that at least discussion here and start talking about that now rather than in June of next year. Obviously, it's everyone's hope that we would be in a better position financially to fund employee commitments across the board. But if we're not, it will be a very, very difficult conversation that we will have, and I just want us to be as prepared for that as possible.
But we did provide raises.
We did provide open range, that's correct, and some of the staff.
So that, I think that's, for the people watching, it's important that they know, because people keep repeating that we didn't give people raises, but 3/4 of the employees got raises.
But we did not fund COLAs this year,
Yeah,
and
COLA
also
didn't happen.
did not fully fund the metro
That's true.
schools
Well,
obligation.
you, council member,
Well,
haven't got a cost of life.
That's up to how Metro Schools
that's
chooses
right.
to use their allocation.
That's right, that's right. But it is a topic of discussion within the county, and so I wanted us to have a discussion about it. I know we're sort of looking at a whole host of things through the Blueprint Commission and things like that. And partly that's why I want to request a little bit more time before advancing this to a floor discussion, so that I can do a little bit more of my own homework, and maybe some other council members can too.
I mean, I guess I would ask, my question would be of Metro Finance, when do we have a sense of when, right? Like, if we come into knowing what our revenue outlook is, projecting into FY20, I feel like, for me, I understand right, there's a little bit of chicken and egg here. I understand the desire to be out in front of the conversation, so it is maybe not as politically fraught, especially in an election year. However, I feel like I don't have the knowledge, and it would be in some ways unfortunate to go for, if we are able to restore COLA, for instance, for FY20, it would be unfortunate to advance and short ourselves, or frankly, let me say that a different way, to short any future candidate for office on the basis of judgment that turned out to not be, like, to basically to have insufficient information.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know when we would expect to have that, but I think my question would probably be to Metro Finance at that point is, what would be the earliest point we would know sort of how far down the road to returning to the pay plan that I think everybody on council frankly supported when we passed it in the first place, how far away we are from that as we look to FY20.
Thank you for that, Councilman. If it's okay, I would.
One short question.
Go ahead.
Problem is, can you trust Budget and Finance? Budget and Finance are the people that told us we had the money to give them COLA raises to start with.
Well,
Councilman, that's a whole other discussion. In the
That's a
interest,
discussion we don't have.
It
That's
is,
what I'm talking
but-
about.
yeah, it's so. Yes and no. I don't think Metro Finance offered the assurance on the front end that, hey, we would be able to commit to it. Well, they didn't know what the revenue collection would be like across a 3-year. I mean, that's the difficulty of supporting a multi-year pay plan is the issue at hand.
and
So
again,
anyway,
just,
so you're
Councilman,
moved for a two meeting
I think that's
deferral?
great, but what I would like to request from the committee is a committee recommendation of a 2-meeting deferral.
Okay. Second.
Can I ask a question?
Before we vote on that,
Yes.
we have
Just one-
3 minutes, and I still need to pick a vice chair.
When was the last time that the council got a raise?
2003,
2003, that's 15 years ago.
correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And that
I
was
think it's
brought
worth
up
noting-
yesterday.
And I think it's worth noting, because I do agree there was a very healthy conversation yesterday in Budget and Finance. As Mr. Jameson reminded the council, legally, these can only be put in place for council is not subject to COLAs like regular employees in a classification. So this pay is a set pay for as long as until it is changed. So it'll stay stagnant. It also has to be effective for a future council term. So we won't have the ability to revisit this until 2023 or 2027.
It's crazy.
So.
Thank you.
So with that, I would like to renew my motion for a 2-meeting deferral. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None.
You
All
gotta
right.
decide who you want.
All right, so I need a vice
Who's
chair.
not here?
Who's not here? However, she's a vice chair of planning and zoning, so I need one of our team members who's not a chair or vice chair of another committee.
Can't be me, so.
Mr. Purdue,
No,
you're my employee representative person.
I've done it. I've done the chairship and the vice chairship for 7 years.
Yeah. What's one more year gonna hurt you?
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Call you, please.
Thanks, Scott.
All right.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Combs and Ms. Hackberry and everyone for coming. We definitely wish you the best and let us know if we can do anything for you. And this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.